Good morning to all of you, and really pleasure to be in here. The chairman of the authority, the chairman of the Polish Association. It's really a privilege to be, by the way, by the first time here in Sopot. It's a privilege to be here with you in this conference. Congratulations for having this conference, and it's really good for me also to come here and to engage and to share my views, but also to listen from, of course, your views and the views of the Polish market. And I also want to congratulate you, Gregor, on what you're saying in relation to having this new look at Europe. Not only, I think, from a regulatory perspective, you mentioned it, but I think it's probably even more than 80% of the things that are on the regulation here in Poland coming from Europe. So I understand really why you want to go to Brussels, but please don't forget Frankfurt also, because, we're of course working a lot on regulatory convergence, but definitely the priorities from our side are also on supervisory convergence. And so the way that, of course, supervision is conducted and will be conducted in the future will become much more towards the European culture. So the dialogue that we need to have not only with your supervisors, but also with you is very important. I'm sure that we will have opportunities from this triangle, Warsaw, Brussels, Frankfurt, to have more engagement. So today I would like to take a few minutes before we enter into the panel to give you a little bit of a picture of challenges, but also opportunities that I think that are there. I want to touch upon supervisory convergence, which is, of course, one of the biggest, if not the biggest priority from EIOPA, and I will come back to some of the issues that were raised in the previous points. But then I also want to talk to you about, challenges, opportunities out there, digitalization, including, of course, cyber risk and the way to deal with it, but also sustainable finance and the pan-European personal pension. Let me start with supervisory convergence and why do we have this priority on supervisory convergence? The real objective of supervisory convergence is to make sure that we have a level playing field out there throughout Europe, that we avoid supervisory arbitrage, and that we have a level of supervision that is of high quality throughout Europe, that protects all consumers in a similar way. And this is the only way to go in an internal market. And I think that all these issues related to cross-border business that we have been facing show this. We have, of course, regulatory alignment and harmonization of regulation throughout Europe, but in an internal market, it all boils down on how this is implemented in reality and how it is supervised. And let me be very blunt on this. I think that in Europe, we are very good together, with all the states, on doing good regulation. We have some things that we can improve, but I think we are very, very good, and we do a thorough process to do regulation. We are not as good in implementing it, in supervising it, and in enforcing it. And this is not only insurance, I think this is around also all the financial market, and this is a lesson that we need to take. So from an EIOPA perspective, what we want is really to work together with all the national authorities to have the best possible supervisory process, the more aligned and the more convergent. And this is a work from EIOPA, but also from the national authorities. And I really want to thank the engagement and the positive approach that since many years the Polish Supervisory Authority has been having in EIOPA. And thank you very much, Jacek, for the contribution from your side and your colleagues there. And in particular to Damian Jaworski, that has been a person working with us for many years and quite instrumental also in this process of supervisory convergence. For the ones that don't know, Damian is the chair of our review panel that looks at review of the practices of supervision in many areas and working towards this alignment of convergence. And for me, this is particularly important, to have someone coming from Poland, from Eastern countries, leading the convergence on peer reviews. It means what I always wanted to have in EIOPA, to show that supervisory convergence is not by having the big member states dictating what needs to be done. It's by having everybody around the table. Everybody has good processes, has good elements to bring, to build together a good supervisory process for the benefit of all the European citizens. So this is very important. Thank you very much to Jacek and to Damian also on this. On our supervisory convergence plan for 2019, a couple of priorities. Let me just mention three. Firstly, in terms of the building up of common benchmarks and common tools of supervision throughout Europe. This is going to be the year, and probably also next year, that we dedicate huge attention to technical provisions. I will not enter into details. This is a huge relevant part. It's 80% of the balance sheet of insurers. We are going to look very deeply to the way that supervision is done of technical provisions, and of course we will be quite engaging, of course, with all supervisors and the industry around Europe. Second element about proportionality and about the way supervisors also apply proportionality in life. And I was very happy to hear what Jacek was just mentioning, because this is really important, that supervisors have a process to deal in a proportionate way with the requirements. And let me be very honest and transparent on this. We have differences throughout Europe in this. And this is logical. We have different cultures. We're coming from different market practices. There's countries where the culture of supervision is more legalistic. There's countries where the culture is more economic-based. We need to build a European supervisory culture where these things need to be balanced. And we really want to work together with the Polish authority on making sure that also in Poland we can have a more proportionate approach in certain types of supervisory aspects, where of course the ones that represent a higher risk will have more attention, and the ones that represent a lower risk will have less attention and less intensity in terms of the requirements. So this is one of the big priorities from our side on supervision. Second point, cross-border business, and Gregor's mentioned that, and of course you know that in the Polish market some situations, but also throughout Europe. Let me be very clear on this. We are in an internal market, and the internal market is a big asset of Europe. It's a big asset of all of us as European citizens. And it's our responsibility, the market first, of course, but then also the supervisors, to make sure that the internal market works. And the internal market has not been working really well in a couple of circumstances. And so we are confronting it from the supervisory side. And at EIOPA we have been, I think, quite forceful on this. We put in place what we call platforms of cooperation between home and host authorities that are coordinated by EIOPA in concrete companies. We've run, I think, at least 13 platforms. We have now 2, for example, I will not mention names, 2 where the Polish authorities are also involved that have to do with the business that is done also in your market. And the role of this is to bring supervisors together, to ensure that there is exchange of information, to ensure that the home supervisors have an understanding of what is the type of business that is done in the host countries, to ensure that everybody can pool the data, the information, the on-site inspections, and work together in order to derive good supervisory outcomes. And I must say that since we have started this in a pioneer spirit and approved at our board, and I'm very happy that we started that, we already have very good successes. Gregor's mentioned the situation in France with construction business. We took out of the market already a number of companies because they were not working within the conditions that are required. And supervisors need to take actions in those circumstances. It's to the protection of the consumers, but it's also to the stability of the market. The providers that are the serious ones, they also want, of course, they should want that the market works in a sound way. So that's the spirit that we are working on this. We're looking definitely to unsustainable business models. But let me say also one thing. Supervision is responsible, of course, at the end. And I've been very clear, and we have been publishing also from our side a number of elements where we see and we say it, that the supervisory outcomes were not the best, that there was some poor supervision going on in some situations. But let me be very honest also. It all starts in the industry. It all starts in the insurance companies. It all starts in the distribution. And let me be very serious about this. What I saw in a number of these circumstances of cross-border business, it's definitely not good standards. And it's not good standards in some companies that are accepting risk without understanding what they are accepting. It's not good standards in insurance companies that are completely in the hands of distributors, brokers in the local markets that basically do all the business and just put the contracts on the insurance company without having any control. This is not good standard, and believe me, supervision is going to take care of this. But the industry and the side of the providers needs also to be, of course, the firstly responsible. This is very important, and that links to our third big priority, which is conduct of business supervision. And of course, we have been working a lot on Solvency II and on the prudential side. Now we have IDD being implemented, we have PRIPS, but also I think we really need to have a different approach to the way conduct of business supervision is done. As a part of EIOPA, we took this as a very strategic point. We have been already from 2 years working hard on defining bases and sound principles for the assessment of conduct risk. We have been making good analysis of the data that exists already, trying to have indicators in terms of complaints, in terms of claims ratios, in terms of levels of commissions, and we are deriving a basis for prioritization on the conduct business throughout Europe and making sure that supervisors also take this more and more seriously. We are defining risk areas. I can tell you, for example, priorities from our side going to be unit-linked business. It's going to be also the add-on insurance, so insurance that are sold on top of other types of contracts or services. Also, the relationship and the conflicts, possible conflicts when there are insurance contracts sold together, for example, with mortgages, with loans. And this is an issue throughout Europe. This is an issue also in the Polish market. Please, let's deal with this together in a serious way. And I want to mention, one phrase that I think it's very important that I've learned from, I think it was Peter Drucker that said one thing. Management, it's about doing things right. Leadership, it's about doing the right things. And what we need right now from the industry, but also from the supervisors, it's not only good management. We need leadership. We need the tone from the top. And the tone from the top in relation to conduct of business needs to be there. And it needs to be there from the CEOs of the insurance companies. It needs to be there from the supervisory authorities at national level. It needs to be there from the European side. And this is an agenda that, believe me, it will not vanish. Because this is top priority. It's about the consumers. It's about having a sound market. And it's about making sure that everybody deals with the skeletons that you have on your closet. And there are issues. We know them. We're going to touch with them. Please help us collectively to have a more transparent, better products, better selling practices. We have IDD. We should implement it in a sound way. And we're going to deal with this. As I said, through, of course, prioritization, because we need to touch, of course, on the issues that are really relevant. But we are coming there. And actually, at the EIOPA level, one of the things that we want to do and that we will work probably end of this year, beginning next year, it's also on the framework of how to do mystery shopping throughout Europe in the insurance sector to make sure that we also get the situation of the consumers and how, of course, consumers are dealing with the advices and with the selling processes in the insurance sector. So please help us on making sure that this agenda is there for the benefit of consumers, but also for the benefit of the industry. Because the serious, the professional players, they will have everything to gain in terms of also competitiveness, of making sure that treating customers fairly, having good products, at the end of the day, it will be for the benefit of the industry, for the benefit of the players that do the right thing. Now, I want to say a little bit about digitalization and the challenges there, and about overall the approach to innovation. And of course, as you may expect from a supervisor, our point of departure is that we don't have preferences for different types of business models. So it's not to say that we are agnostic, but of course we are technological neutral. But I personally, and I think that this is the conversation that we're having more and more at the supervisory level also, is that collectively, not only from an industry perspective, but also from a regulatory and supervisory perspective, we need to embrace innovation, all of us. I think that there's no way, things are there, it's not the future, it's the present already, and I think that there's a huge possibility of having good outcomes, better outcomes for consumers, having better products, better services, also using innovation. And by the way, let me just make a reference to the bigger picture. You know, sometimes I hear that while in Europe we are too restrictive in terms of data protection, in terms of security of the data, etc., I think we should not abandon these. These are European characteristics. This is a plus, and it's perfectly possible to do good, innovative, technological-driven business models within this framework. We need to work together, and that's the approach that EIOPA has also to relay in relation to that. We just published, I think yesterday, a report on big data analytics usage in the insurance sector on motor and health insurance. And it's a clear trend there. There's a strong trend towards the data-driven business models in the insurance sector. Already around 55% of the insurers are already using or in the testing phase of using artificial intelligence, machine learning elements. We need to see more of these also. But also we need to have an approach from the supervisor side, which is an approach more open to, I would say, innovation. And that's something that we see in a number of countries with this sandbox and innovation hubs. What we have done at European level, and that we had just a couple of weeks ago given the first step, we are building right now a European forum for these innovation facilitators, which will be cross-sectoral together with our colleagues from the EBA and ESMA to make sure that the national innovation centers are coming together to discuss and to see how consistently we can do this also in the financial sector, to make sure that we have an ambience which is more proactive in relation to innovation. Our focus in this area is going to be basically threefold in the coming months. Firstly, we want to work on some principles of digital responsibility in the insurance sector, and these principles of digital responsibility should be applied by everybody, by the incumbents, by the insurtechs, by the big technological firms. We want to have a level playing field there. I think that's very important, that we have sound ethical standards that are used by all the industry. Second element, it's about the governance of algorithms. You know, we start to see, and we've seen it in this thematic review, the use of algorithms to price, to claims management, etc. There could be very good developments in that, but we need to make sure that there is a proper governance for these algorithms, that there is explainability, that there is auditability, that there is responsibility for the way that these algorithms are derived. And third priority from our side in this area is to think forward in terms of how can we regulate and supervise digital platforms. I think more and more business will gonna be done through digital platforms. This is, I think, an important strategic element. We want to think collectively with yourselves, with the different stakeholders, on how can we deal with the regulation and the supervision of digital platforms. But also in innovation, there's a linkage, clear linkage to cyber risk. You know, the more innovation we have, the more, of course, impacts and probability we'll have with cyber risk. And this is where we see at EIOPA quite an important role for the insurance sector. So we want to work on the cyber insurance side to make sure that we create sound conditions to have cyber insurance that can deal with three basic points, that can help to do good assessment of the cyber resilience in the market, in the economy, that can contribute to have more resilience measures implemented, but also that can have an element of protection there. And I really believe that cyber insurance will be in the future an enabler of the digital revolution. We need to have insurance, cyber insurance, as a contribute to allow, of course, this digital framework and this digital single market that we want to build in Europe. So I would really like to have more engagement in this area of cyber insurance, and definitely we're going to have it in the coming years. Finally, a voice and a point about where I see also the role of the industry moving forward. I think that we are in a situation where there's huge societal, I would say, gaps, and insurance can be more used and insurers can be at the forefront of also helping to close these societal gaps. And I'm talking about, for example, natural catastrophes. This is something that we would really like to put in the discussion also of sustainability and sustainable finance. And I will come back to that, I'm sure, in the panel on sustainable finance. But just want to mention that in relation to natural catastrophes and the protection gap that is out there, it's huge worldwide, but also in Europe. We still have many countries in Europe where the major perils are not covered. And this poses issues of financial stability, this poses issues of stability of the public finances at the end of the day. And there's a lot that we can do with the insurance sector in order to have better risk mapping, to have solutions of risk adaptation, and also to have, of course, better protection. So this is, I think, a challenge, and I think that the industry and the regulators should work together on trying to deliver something in this area in the context of sustainability. But also, the pensions gap, and I'm very interested to see that here in Poland you're also working in this PPK. So we have worked in Europe on the pan-European personal pension product, you know, the PEP. I would be very happy to see that if the Polish government and the Polish market, of course, looks at this with good eyes. This is an opportunity, and the way that we have developed it, it's definitely to have competition in the market, to have different providers being able to provide it, but also to have different types of products that can be used. Because security for different types of consumers in terms of retirement savings means different things. You can have, if you have a good first pillar, if you have a good occupational pension, you can take more risk on your personal pension. You maybe you're not so much interested on having a guarantee, you can take more risk in there. If you are quite heavily dependent on the third pillar pension, then you need to be probably a little bit more conservative and to have access to guarantees. So we should have the possibility of these two areas being there. That's what we want to work now in the implementation of the PEP regulation, with this concept of life cycle, but also with the concept of the idea of having pooling mechanisms, that the text is in there precisely to have the insurance sector contributing. We want to have the PEP with a key information document for consumers, which is digital-based, which is really focused on people understanding and using it. And we want transparency. And we want transparency. And let me just say this final point. Transparency is something that is for the benefit of consumers, and this will continue. So we want, of course, to have cost definitions which are aligned, and we want to have methodologies for the calculation of the performance of the different types of products that are aligned. But this is not only for the benefit of consumers. This is also for the benefit of the industry. Today, you have competition in this area of retirement savings between very different products within an unlevel way. Your people are comparing things which are not comparable. We need to have standardization of costs and standardization of methodology for performance, the definitions, in order to have comparability where it should be, that where you can compare the rewards compared to the risk that you're taking. So this is important. I hope that the Polish market also supports us on this, and it's very, I would say, very much relevant also in the context of the PEP. So please take the opportunity of the PEP. The PEP wants to contribute to the future, having better savings, retirement savings, better outcomes, linking it to sustainability, sustainable investments, and linking it to the digital world to have a better way of selling to the new generations. This is a challenge, but if together we work together, I think we can make it out of it. And the concept of having a European product, having the European citizens having something that they see as the added value that Europe can bring to them, I think it's a very important element. No citizen in the street understands what is the CMU, the Capital Markets Union. But if we are succeeding with the PEP that delivers something in terms of better retirement outcomes for the citizens in Europe, people will understand what this means for them. In Europe, we need to bring the activities more close to the citizens. We need to make people understand what is the value of being European, to be in Europe. And this is something that us, also from the European side and the European institutions, we need really to work on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we have a robust industry, in Europe. We have an industry that is ready to the challenges. We need to take more attention, both from the industry and from the supervision, to conduct, to the products. But overall, I'm very positive that the industry will help and will contribute to close the gaps that the society has and the risks that the society has. And as John Kennedy said, change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. Let's build the future together. Thank you.